Peace. I wanted to share with you an incident that happened in my youth mentorship program recently and give those of you some insight into how to handle similar scenarios so that you can see some effective ways to resolve incidents like this. I had got an inappropriate text one evening on my phone. I looked down and I'm like, who is this? I don't identify the number or nothing like that. So I'm thinking like, I wonder who this is. I wonder who this is because I don't give my number out like that. And then I thought about it like, oh, okay, yeah, my little cousin's in my program and he has my number. So either he shared it with somebody or he had his phone laying around and one of the other youth went through his phone and got my personal information and then sent me that kind of text later on that evening. Either way it was, I had to check my cousin first and foremost and let him know, yo, don't share my number with people. I gave it to you personally. If someone asks for my number, you got to ask my permission first. And then I'll let you know whether or not I want you to share it. Secondly, you got to keep up with your stuff and be responsible for it, because if it's laying around, anybody can go through your personal information and use that information, create some type of trouble, and then you're going to be the one that's held responsible because it came from you originally. That was number one. Secondly, next time I saw the youth, because I found out who it was because I just called the number, his voice came up on the voicemail with his name and everything. So I'm like, it came from him, you know what I'm saying, his phone. Next time I saw him, I ain't make a scene or nothing. I just waited for an appropriate time, casually pulled him aside and said, yo, you remember I was talking to you like probably like a month or so ago about being responsible for your phone? Well, yo, check this out, man. And I'm gonna show him the text and I'm gonna say, yo, I know you ain't do something like this, but like I said, you gotta be responsible for your phone because anybody can pick it up and send things like this. And even though it's not you, you're gonna be one that's held responsible because it came from your phone. Now, imagine if I just looked at this phone text message and contacted the police and said, someone's sending me harassing text messages, because people do that. They will just look at a number and just go right to the police station and say somebody's sending them harassing text messages, and then the police will investigate it. Next thing you know, they contacted a number and they finding out that it's your phone, because there's no way to hide that. And then they're contacting your parents, and now your parents is all involved, the police is all involved, and now they're coming to you asking you about why you are sending text messages like this, even if you didn't do it, because I don't think you did it. But leaving your phone around, people can pick it up and do stuff like that. So you understand the importance of making sure that you're responsible like that, because you don't want to be held responsible for somebody else doing something with your name attached to it. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, yeah, I understand. And he's receptive to it or whatever, because I didn't personally attack him. I didn't blame him personally. And youth oftentimes, one of the most primary games they learn from us adults is how to blame somebody else. And you could walk into a room and see a 5-year-old with a broken vase sitting there off a counter that no way in hell did it jump off the counter. And you ask them, what happened? I don't know. Who did it? I don't know who did it. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, children learn at a very young age not to take responsibility. And one of the approaches that I've found that is effective in terms of communicating the rightness or the wrongness to not only youth, but adults too, is to just frame things sometimes just in principle. You ain't got to say that they did it, even if you know they did it, but just talk about things in principle sometime and explain the consequences of what happens when things function a certain way, because that way they're able to look at things and to think about it more objectively, as opposed to feeling as though they're being subjected to a personal attack. And in that regard, people they put the defenses up right off the cuff. You know, especially youth. They don't want to hear nothing like that. But when I explained it to him that way, like, yo, and gave him the out and said, yeah, I know you wouldn't do that. You better than that. But you just have to be more responsible, because people can take your stuff and use your name in a dirty way. You know what I'm saying? And he was receptive to that. I didn't get no more texts like that. And he's a lot more understanding of the way in which I strive to do things in terms of making sure that I place the highest value in a relationship. Because sometimes when a person feels as though you're personally attacking them, they automatically sever the relationship. And if we are truly in the interest of helping inspire, empower, and educate others, then we have to strive to do things in the best way as possible to make sure we maintain that relationship and show people that I'm sharing this and doing this out of love. You know what I mean? Another thing that I wanted to mention is with our youth, because they're developing cognitively and they're learning to not only think on their own but also think critically, they may still do things without thinking first. And that's what we call wisdom knowledge. They're doing or acting upon something before putting thought into it first. The appropriate way to do things is to think about it and then do it. And that's one thing that we oftentimes have to continually encourage our youth to do. Think about stuff first before you do it or before you get involved in it. And sometimes it may be that type of scenario where youth are just doing something without even thinking about the consequences. And we've done it before. Some of us still do it. And because of that, we have to have some level of consideration and concern for our youth, knowing that they're going to do that, especially developing those cognitive skills at that young age. They're not going to think about everything that they do before they do it first. And we can't punish them as harshly as we would those who know a lot better. You know what I'm saying? So I will just was inspiring, it was empowering, it was educating, and gave those of you a little bit more insight into, you know, an effective approach sometimes in regards to addressing the rightness or the wrongness of things. Sometimes just frame it in principle and talk to a person about the principalities of how something functions and what are the consequences of something when it functions a certain way. Not that they did it or they didn't do it, but just talk about it over here. And then they can sit there and look at it too. And you may have a lot more success in being able to share something with people. And that's not to dismiss the fact that sometimes you just got to check somebody straight up. I'm not saying you dismiss that altogether. I'm just saying that's just another approach. Sometimes you just got to, yo, dude, why'd you do that? You know what I'm saying? Or, yo, I know that you did it in this, that, and the third. Sometimes you got to approach it that way too. But I'm just talking about, you know, that kind of approach. Peace.